Both of our phones were wiped. Not lost. Not left behind accidentally. Not dead from a drained battery. Wiped. Completely. Reset to factory settings. Every message, every call, every contact, every photograph gone. As if someone had decided, deliberately and methodically, that whatever was on those phones could not be allowed to exist anymore. She left them on the kitchen table, and then she walked out of her house and into the New Mexico mountains. And nobody has seen her since. Here is what makes this case different from almost every other disappearance you have heard. Melissa Casias did not vanish without a trace. She left traces everywhere. A surveillance camera caught her walking alone on a remote highway. A family acquaintance spotted her on that same road. A pair of shoes matching hers was later recovered in a national forest nearby. The traces exist. They just do not connect to anything. And somewhere in the gap, between a woman dropping a Subway sandwich to her daughter at lunchtime and a woman walking alone into the mountains 3 hours later, something happened that nobody has been able to explain. Not her husband. Not her daughter. Not the New Mexico State Police who have been investigating since June of 2025. Not anyone. Today, we are going to Taos County, New Mexico. We are going to walk every hour of the 26th of June, 2025. We are going to sit with the detail that changed everything. 2 phones, wiped clean, sitting on a kitchen table. And we are going to ask the question that has divided Melissa's own family straight down the middle. Did Melissa Casias choose to disappear? Or did something on those phones make someone choose it for her? Ranchos de Taos, New Mexico. A small community at the foot of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the Blood of Christ Mountains, where the land rises sharply from the high desert floor into pine-covered ridges and deep forested canyons. It is beautiful in the way that remote places are beautiful. Quiet, vast, the kind of landscape that makes a person feel very small very quickly. The kind of place where, if something went wrong on a mountain road, nobody would hear it. Melissa Shirley Casias was born on the 1st of November, 1971, 53 years old at the time of her disappearance. She had spent her life building something real and grounded in northern New Mexico, a career, a family, a home in a community she knew well. She worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory, not as a casual employee, as an administrative assistant with a security clearance, the kind of job that requires a background check, the kind of job that requires you to badge in every single day, that holds you to a standard of reliability that most workplaces never demand. Her husband Mark also worked at the laboratory. They commuted together the long drive from Ranchos de Taos to Los Alamos every morning, side by side, the way couples do when their lives have grown so intertwined that even the daily grind belongs to both of them. They had a daughter, Sierra, 20 years old, living with them in that house at the foot of the mountains. By every account, Melissa was a woman who knew exactly who she was. Her niece Jasmine described her with one word: badass. She hunted. She was an archer. Her social media was filled with photographs of her and Mark and Sierra in the forests near their home, posing with big game, living the kind of outdoor life that northern New Mexico makes possible. She was funny. She made people laugh hard. She loved her family with a ferocity that everyone around her felt. She was not the kind of woman who simply disappeared, which is what makes those 2 wiped phones the most disturbing detail in a case full of disturbing details. The 26th of June, 2025, began normally. At approximately 6:15 in the morning, Melissa drove Mark to Los Alamos National Laboratory, the usual commute. Mark got out of the car. Melissa drove away. She told him she needed to finish some work elsewhere on site and would have the car back to him by 11. He had no reason to question that. That was how their mornings worked. He went inside. And then Melissa did something unexpected. She turned around. She drove the hour back home to Ranchos de Taos, a drive she had just completed in the opposite direction. She arrived at the house around 7:45 in the morning. Sierra was still home, still waking up, and heard her mother come through the door. Sierra asked her, "What are you doing home?" Melissa said she had forgotten her badge. Simple enough. Relatable enough. People forget things. Sierra accepted it without question and went about her morning. But here is the detail that Mark flagged to investigators later. The detail that stopped him cold when he thought about it. He said she showed her badge to get in. You have to show your badge to get through the gate, and it is always the driver who shows it. Melissa had shown her badge at the gate that morning. She had her badge when she entered the laboratory. And yet she drove an hour home to retrieve a badge she had already used. Why? That question has no answer. And it is the first thread in a case that is made entirely of unanswered threads. Melissa told Sierra she would work from home or call out for the day. Sierra left for work. The house went quiet. At approximately 10 minutes to 1 in the afternoon, surveillance footage from the John Dunn shops in downtown Taos captured Melissa leaving the building, walking to her car, and driving away. She was carrying a backpack, light-colored shirt, jeans, tennis shoes. 40 minutes later, she pulled up to Sierra's workplace in Taos Plaza. She had a Subway sandwich with her. She dropped it off for her daughter's lunch, said hello, said goodbye. Sierra watched her mother drive away. That was the last time she saw her. Melissa drove home, parked her car in the driveway, went inside. And then at some point in the next hour, she walked out without her keys, without her wallet, without her purse, without the cash sitting on her office desk, without the paycheck Sierra had given her to deposit at the bank, without either of her phones. Her daughter came home at approximately 3:30 that afternoon to find the front door locked, her mother's car in the driveway. She went inside. Everything was there. Her mother was not. And when Sierra picked up the phones, both of them, personal and work, she found something that made the bottom drop out of the afternoon. Both phones had been reset to factory settings, completely wiped. Sierra said later, it was an immediate red flag. She was right. Because people who walk away from their lives voluntarily do not need to erase their phones first. People who want to disappear do not leave their phones behind for their families to find. They take their phones. They use their phones to navigate, to communicate, to exist in a world that requires a device. Melissa left both phones. And before she left them, she made sure there was nothing on them to find. Mark was dropped off at the house by a colleague around 5 in the afternoon. He reported Melissa missing that evening. And then, a few hours later, a family acquaintance came forward with something investigators needed immediately. He had seen Melissa that afternoon, walking alone on New Mexico State Highway 518, a 2-lane road that runs eastward from the Talpa area toward Pot Creek and eventually into the deep forest of Carson National Forest. Walking alone, in the same clothes Sierra had seen her wearing at lunch, shouldering a backpack. At approximately 2:18 in the afternoon, surveillance footage from Kit Carson Electric Company, a local business near that highway, confirmed it. Melissa on foot, walking eastbound on Highway 518, alone, moving at a normal pace. The footage is described by investigators as difficult to read in terms of whether she appeared distressed, not obviously distressed, not obviously fine, just walking into the mountains, alone, with no phone, no wallet, no keys, no money, and no explanation that anyone has been able to confirm since. Right here, right now. Before we go any further into what investigators found and what they did not find, I need to stop and sit with you for a second. Because this case has something that most missing persons cases do not have. It has a question that her own family cannot agree on. Her husband Mark and her daughter Sierra believe Melissa left voluntarily. That she was dealing with personal and financial struggles that built into something she felt she could not face. Sierra has spoken publicly. She said there is nothing that cannot be fixed. That they are waiting with wide open arms. That this too shall pass. But Melissa's parents, Jose and Joanne Mondragon, and her sister, Trudy Najera, believe something far darker happened to their daughter and sister. Joanne said she does not want to go anywhere. She told her family, what if Melissa comes and I am not here? What if she calls the landline and I am not here? A mother sitting by a landline waiting for a call. A daughter sitting with open arms waiting for a return. Two completely different beliefs about the same woman, the same disappearance, the same unanswered mourning. So here is what I want from you right now. Drop it in the comments before we go any further. Which side of this family do you believe? Do you think Melissa wiped those phones and walked into those mountains because she needed to disappear from her own life, or do you think someone else made that decision for her? Tell me. Because the answer to that question is the entire case. Please subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell. This case is trending this week. Crime Junkie just covered it days ago, and it is still completely unsolved. When something breaks, you need to be here. Share this video, because Melissa Casias is still out there somewhere, and every signal matters. Investigators searched, immediately and extensively. Over 100 volunteers came out in the days after Melissa disappeared. Family members driving from Albuquerque, members of the local bow hunting community who knew Melissa from years of hunting in those same forests. Taos search and rescue with canine units working the area along Highway 518. They found nothing that confirmed where she had gone. But they found something else. A private investigator hired by Melissa's family recovered a pair of shoes in Carson National Forest. Shoes matching the description of the ones Melissa was wearing when she was last seen on that surveillance footage. Tennis shoes, light-colored. DNA analysis on those shoes was pending as of the last public update. The results have not been publicly disclosed. Think about what it means that those shoes were found in that forest. Either Melissa walked deep enough into Carson National Forest to lose her shoes, or someone who was with her in those mountains left them there. Either way, those shoes are the closest thing to a physical trail that this investigation has produced. And the trail they point toward runs directly into one of the most remote, most unforgiving stretches of wilderness in northern New Mexico. Carson National Forest covers 1.5 million acres. Mountains, canyons, river valleys, and dense forest that search teams have barely scratched the surface of. The Sangre de Cristo Range rises to nearly 4,000 meters in places. Trails disappear into terrain that sees almost no foot traffic. Entire sections of that landscape have not been formally searched. If Melissa walked into those mountains on the afternoon of the 26th of June, either by choice or by force, the forest is large enough and deep enough to keep it secret for a very long time. There is one more detail in this case that investigators and Melissa's family have never been able to explain away. The badge. Melissa showed her badge at the gate to Los Alamos National Laboratory that morning. The badge that requires a security clearance. The badge that identifies her as an employee of one of the most sensitive research institutions in the United States. She showed it. She entered. And then she drove home claiming she had forgotten it. Why would a woman with a security clearance at a national laboratory claim to have forgotten a badge she had just used to enter the premises? Was she distracted? Was she confused? Was she already thinking about something else? Something that was building toward the afternoon that followed? Or was the badge story not about the badge at all? Was it a reason to go home that had nothing to do with forgetting anything? And if she needed to be home that morning for a specific reason, what was that reason? Nobody has answered that question publicly. Her husband could not explain it. He said it was always the driver who showed the badge. He said she showed it. He said he could not figure it out. That detail, small, logistical, completely ordinary on the surface, sits at the center of the 26th of June, like something that has not yet been fully understood. Melissa Casias dropped a Subway sandwich to her daughter at lunchtime. That is the detail I keep returning to. Of everything she could have done on the morning she disappeared, she drove to Sierra's workplace. She brought her lunch. She said hello. She said goodbye. She looked at her daughter. And then she drove home and wiped her phones and walked out into the mountains with nothing but a backpack and the clothes she was wearing. Was that lunch a goodbye? Did Melissa know, when she handed that sandwich through the window and looked at Sierra's face, that she was not going to see her again? Was that moment deliberate, one last thing, one last face, one last ordinary act of love before whatever came next? Or did she have no idea what the afternoon was going to become? Did she drop off that lunch as innocently as it looked, and then something happened between that moment and the moment she walked out of her house that changed everything? Both possibilities are devastating in different ways. Joanne Mondragon sits by her landline, still waiting. Her daughter's niece told journalists she is worried the case is going to go cold. New Mexico State Police have reported no breakthroughs. The shoes in the forest are waiting for DNA results that have not been publicly confirmed. And somewhere in Carson National Forest, or somewhere beyond it, somewhere that no search team has reached the answer to what happened to Melissa Casias on a Thursday afternoon in June, is waiting too. Melissa's family described her as a badass, a woman who hunted and laughed hard and loved fiercely, a woman who knew those mountains better than most. A woman who, if she chose to walk into them, knew exactly what she was walking into. And if she did not choose it, if something or someone drove her to that highway on foot, with no phone and no wallet and no way to call for help, then the mountains are keeping a secret that her family deserves to have back. Please, subscribe to the channel, Cold Case Signals. Ring that notification bell. Leave a comment, tell me what you think those wiped phones mean. Tell me whether you think that lunch was a goodbye. Tell me what the badge story says to you. Because this case is built entirely on questions that the evidence raises and refuses to answer. Share this video. One share. One more person who hears Melissa's name. One more signal sent into the New Mexico mountains on behalf of a woman who deserves to be found. We have more cases coming. More signals. More stories told the way they deserve. With depth. With truth, and with absolute respect for every woman at the center of them. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one.